Alright, so what we've been able to do is we've been able to deploy the app, but then you can see that it's throwing this the error. So what you're going to do now is that you come back to your package JSON and ensure that you put things right. So the first thing we want to do is first of all test our app and ensure it's working locally before we deploy. So we know that it's not going to be issue with the application not running. So to run, let's say you want to run with node-mon API. So this is running, and of course it's running at port 4700, so everything is working. All right, so you know that I can also run with, let's say, node API, so depending on which one. So node-mon is to auto, each time I make any change, automatically it reloads itself without me having to stop the server and restarting it again. So what you want to do is to tell Heroku how to start your task. So this same thing that you did here locally, maybe is node daemon, node monitor, or you want to use the node command. So what you just do here is come to the package JSON, and in the scripts, under the scripts, this is where you're going to register all the scripts that you want to run. So for now, the first thing you want to run is we want to run a script. So, and the script is a start script. So this is how node would handle. So we say node API, the same thing that you did here. So this API, though, if you are watching on your own, that's the first file that you want to serve. You know what we had here, we have entry point, we have intro.js. Most of the times the first file you want to serve is also your entry point here. So this is the first thing that gets in your application, that's your main. But then, irrespective of what you put in the main, this script here is what would get served. By the time it's served, the same way you did it locally, then your application start working. So this is what your server, whichever server you're deploying into. So in this case, heroku, this is what is going to use to start your application. So node API, so it will start the application like that. So the next thing that is important is that the version of the node that you are using, and this API, it doesn't have to always be API, because I want this file, this very file, this one here, to be served. So this is api.js, and that's the file that we are serving. So if your own is, let's say, server.js or anything.js, and that is what you want to put there, that's what you put here, whatever name. So that's a file name. This is actually a file name. It doesn't have anything to do with, and you can put the extension of JS, whatever. So so let's say you say API, like that. Also, let's say API or API.js, the choice. Now, so the next thing is to tell the server which node version to use. The essence of this is that you've been testing your code locally, and it's been working. So sometimes when you move to another environment with a different node version, different npm version, the tendency is that the application might break depending on which dependencies that you have installed. So you want to tell the Heroku or whichever this thing that you're using that, okay, this is what you should use for me. Use this guy. Use use engine. So say use this engine, that's engines. Then we'll specify the engines. So this is where we are going to specify all the this thing here. So in this place, I'm going to specify my node version, in this case in the engine. So you check your node version to know which node version to put. So it's 14.5, 14.15 in this case. So go in there and put 14. So here the engine, I want to use node, and which version, that's the software to download. So you should use 14.15. I think 14.15. So that is enough, or you can put the exact 14.15.4. All right, so that's because I've tested it and it works with this version. So that's the same version that Heroku would attempt to use for you. All right, so now at this point, if you deploy to the this thing, if it's not an application that depends on database, for instance, if it doesn't depend on that database, all things being equal, if you deploy at this point, you shouldn't see that error again. But this application depends on database at start, and that you can see the first thing it does is just check some files, and then it's listening, and then you get connected to the database. So, and we've not set up any remote database, so we are going to set that up. But let's say I just want to so that you can have a feel of continuous integration. I would push none and it get deployed immediately. So let's say I say git add dot. All right, so the only thing I've changed is just within the package.json. So git commit, right? So I commit this file, so just put edited packages or package.json. So you could put whatever it is that you actually did there. So 35 changes, 5 insertions made, and like that. So git push. All right, so there we go. So we have this to be Kenny at whatever, and then we have this. So this is okay, I didn't authentication field. Let me so we have that, and then the password. All right, so pushed. Now you can see that the code is pushed to where is the GitHub. I just is 6. Okay. Yeah, so the code is pushed to GitHub. So if you go to your heroku, this one here, you'll see that okay, another one has been okay, so he's waiting, really he's waiting for it to be deployed. All right, auto deploy main branch. Okay, so there's no main branch here, so let me create a branch for me. coming. So I'm creating a branch called main. So I'm going to um, so that's the main branch. So we look at, so you can see it's building already because it's expecting code from the main branch, so it's building. You can, as it was building, you can actually view the log, and you'll see that this thing. So there are 4 versions already. You will look at the app. So right now, so it's still throwing the error. So if you have looked at the log, you will have seen that the error now is not the first error. The error is now the database error, because right now there's no connection to the database, and this application depends on that database. It's a static application, let's say a website or a node app and all of that. A node web, it should show up at this point. Okay, now so the next thing we want to do is to configure a data store for it. So you can configure any data store. Okay, so if you go to the node market, so here if you come here and say you have databases from the distance, so you can have some default databases like PostgreSQL, like heroku, Redis, or Kafka and all of that. So, but the database you are using locally is what's it called? It's mysql. So we want to use, let's say we want to use mysql database, right? So we want to use mysql database now. So we have to go to the store. We'll go to the market and look for mysql database and install. So let me see if it's available from here. Otherwise we have to go to the market to look for it. So it's not available from here. So let's go to heroku markets, heroku, yeah, what's it called? MySQL. So you can come in here. I like using Java, but let me say, sorry, you can just have MySQL Heroku. So you can have all of that. Where is it? Yeah. So from here, this one is ClearDB. Whichever, if it's ClearDB you're using, this is an example, all of that. So let me see, where is the so you can have, say you go to elements.heroku.com. So you have something like this. So you can have you have a lot of resource here. You have all of them: ClearDB, JAWS, DB, whatever that you want, ghosts and all of that. So in this case, what we're interested in really, so that we can go straight to the point, is a MySQL database. So you can let's say you want to roll with this, or you want to go roll with JAWS, DB, MySQL, whatever. So let's say you click on, it's very straightforward, either one that you want to use. So some of them are free, a lot of them are, we have free package, and then you can pay for the, advanced plan. So you can install that JDB, install JDB, like that. So you want to say which one you want to. So this is an add-on. This is a free package. They have other packages. This is shared, Catfin shared free, the Leopard shared. This one is paid $10 per month. This one is free. So let's stick with that. So app to provision to. So which app you want to link this to? So let's say you want to link it to say Tyler, this app like this. Now, so you can just link it with this, with a click of a button, it's going to get linked to it, and you don't have to worry yourself. All right, so submit order form. So at this point, if you are doing it for the first time, it's going to ask you to authenticate your account. You are going to have to submit credit card information. Your card will not be charged, because you're not using any paid resource for now. The card is pay as you go. Your card will only be charged when you use a paid resource. So, but if you don't put your card there, there's no way forward. You have to get past that stage. And so, but because this is not the first time I'm doing it, and that's why it's not taking me there. But if you're doing it for the first time, so what it's going to request from you would be to put in the card. All right, so let's write on. So I have this that, so the application is linked, the database is already linked like that, and if you click on here, you can have your database credentials that is needed to connect. So these are the database credentials: the host, the username, the password, the port, and all of that. So what we then need to do is to change the approach that you're using locally. If you're using this approach, I intentionally keep this approach. If you are using this approach where what you're using here, you write it, point blank here, point blank here, point blank here. What you don't want to do, what you could do, but you don't want to do, is maybe copy this like this and go and put it in the code like that. You put it in this code like this, put username, put password, put database, it will work. But then, you are pushing this to repo. When you do that, you push to the repo, and it means that you're putting the sensitive information in your repo. Your database credentials are there in the repo, which is the worst thing you shouldn't do. So what you would then do would be to say, change this approach to go to your .env file and put this thing there. So let's say db hosts, that's the credentials for so db hosts is going to be this, and db user is going to be, that's the username of the database. So it's your variable, you are the one defining it yourself: db host, db user, and then let's say db password, then db ports, the port of the database that you want to use, db ports, which other one? Okay, db name. So let's say db name, that's the database name, or db database. So depending on whatever it is that you want to use. So let me do this locally first of all, run things and ensure that it works with my local credentials before I update it to the live credential. So I have these local hosts, and then the username I was using root, and the password was nothing, and the port is the default port 3306. So I'm using XAMPP to manage my database, so I can see the port here is 3306. And the database name I created a test database that I'm using locally for the sake of this tutorial. So if you look at my here, so I'm using a phpMyAdmin to manage the view of it. So you have this test database here, that's the one I want to use, so this one here. All right, so okay, test user, I think I created a user called test user. All right, so it's not roots. Let me see. Database. Okay, these are the credentials. So let me take that to my env file. So test user is the user I'm using, and the password is password at 123 is what I'm using. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this, and the database name is test. Database name is test. So if I get rid of this, right, so this is done. The next thing I want to do would be to then, change, instead of hard coding it here, change it to the environment variable, because I've moved it into environment variable. So I'm going to have to change it from that area, right? So I'm going to have to change it like that. All right, so where is that again? Here. So I have require, so I'm requiring .env .config. all right, then this one here will be, instead of hard coding it, use process .env what name did I call it? I think it's db underscore ports, sorry, db underscore hosts, db hosts, that's the host name. So then the user would be db user, then this one will be db password, and then this one will be db name. So the user will be db user, and this one will be db password, and then this one will be db name, depending on how you put it there in the environment. So check that out: db hosts, db user, db password, db ports, and db name. All right, so good. So let's have a test again and see that things still work the way it should work. All right, so now I'm going to say node API. So right, so it said it's not access denied for user, empty user at localhost. Okay, so it's not db user. Where is it? Where is it? The db user. DB user is test user, like this. Okay, and this is supposed to be a method. All right, so database connected, so everything is fine. It's connected. Now this way it can work anywhere, so I don't have to connect. You cannot use your local environment credentials, local database credentials online. So now it's easy for me to manage. This guy is not going to the live server with me, all right? So I'm not pushing it to the repo, so it's not going to the live server with me, right? So but then we're going to configure the one on the live server, so that that works. So what we're going to configure to the live server will be these credentials, these database credentials, and we don't have to keep it locally. All right, so what we then do would be to, we have this guy, then we'll come here and set the live credentials. So if you look at it, live credentials we have to set. So okay, now settings. So you go to that. When you click on that application name, then you can go into the settings. All right. So where is that? No. Okay, let me come back to the dashboard. Have the application name clicked. Have this guy clicked. Then here you have these settings here. All right, so you have this app name, whatever. Then you see configure variables. So this is your live variable. That's the live environment variable. So this is the variables. It will be similar to the way it's speaking, the way your local server is speaking from this .env. This is like your .env of the live environment. So you can say reveal the config variables. So you can have this configured, and then you can then put in what you need to put, config variables, just whatever. So this is already linked to your application. So you then put the key as it's expected. You put the key as it's expected. So db hosts, for instance, the same way you declare, you're the one that it's your variable. So you say db hosts. So you put the host name, for instance. So in this case, this is the host name. That's the database host name. Then what is it? db user. That's this variable as you have declared it, and as your application is expecting it. Database username, and this is the username in this case. So you have that. Then database password, the same way you have declared it locally, and your application is expecting it that way. Then you have the password, so you can use this guy password. Then what else have we not captured? The ports, database ports. So same database ports. So database ports 3306. Then what else? DB name. So the database name, which in this case, that's the database itself, is this. So it doesn't matter which element you're using, which data store you're using. So it's pretty much a similar experience. So now you've declared this. Then another thing you want to do in preparation for the live server, you can see that what we have here is this thing is listening at this port. So I want to ensure that my host here, if I come into the API, where is this, my here? Yeah, so I don't have to say this, so I can ask it to work with the process dot environment dot ports, or it works with the 4700. So so in this case we are not saying that it should always use 4700. So if the environment already has a port provision for it, so it's going to use that one. Then if it doesn't, then it will use the one that it has. So just to be sure that everything is captured, so I'm going to have that put here. Okay, now so let me run it again and be sure that nothing is broken yet before we take it to the live server. And then also I would also put it host here. So I'll say hosts. uh, so the host to be equals to 0.0.0.0. So it's any hosts, so it works at any hosts. Okay, so like that. So if we run it again, so everything is fine, everything is still connected, it's working. So it's working on port 4700. you know Everything is still fine. It's working on that. All right. So, and we've configured a live database. So the next thing we want to do will be to then push again. Add changes, commit. So each time you commit, if you're committing straight to, if you're listening on master, there's no need to. If you had configured that CI to master, as you're pushing to master, you just pick it up from there. But I configure it to main unfortunately. So, but it means that there are two states, two processes. Git commit message is configured. What we did was to configure environment variable. That's what we did. Now, so I will just push. All right, great. So go head straight to your repo. So on the repo, I have a push less than 1 minute ago. So I can change default branch to main. So I can update that, right? So change the default branch to main, like that. So it means that when you push, it goes to main. But in this case, what I will just do is to do. Let me update that. Changing those can have another consequences. Okay, yeah. So that we don't even complicate issues. Let me just do a PR to 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 okay. So I'm pulling from masters to main so that you can go. So yeah, so I just create a PR like that. So the moment it checks if there is conflict and there's no conflict, I get that confirmed. Head straight to your heroku and see it live, see it build. You can see it's going to start in a bit. The moment, so you can see it building. You can view the log. So you see it's working, configuring the environment, building, catching builds and everything, and build success. Doing all the necessary things that it needs to do. launching, and is launched. So yeah, so it's done. So let's look at that. And yeah, you can then view your app. Now, so what you can see here is welcome to my API. Now, so welcome to my API means that the error that you have is disappeared, so you are good to go. But the next thing you want to do is you have been developing locally, so maybe you already have an existing database that you want to move because you are not using migration now. So you have this database. What you want to do is to configure this database. You want to configure it locally and be able to manage it. So you can actually manage it with the same PHP admin that you are having. So, but you need to configure. You need small configuration so that you can use it to monitor a remote database. The database that this is monitoring is local to your system, but now this other database is a remote database on another computer, so you want to monitor it. So you could use this tool as well, this ID tool, IDSQL. So you can use that. I have that installed on my laptop already. You understand? So you can get it downloaded. So when you download it, you can use it. So it's, if you don't want to go through small configuration that this guy needs, this guy for you to configure is you, because it's XAMPP, you configure the configuration files, change and put the host that is listening to and everything, change everything that is listening to this server, and everything will work. So, but if you're using this, it's pretty simple. Just download this. Once you download it, you just come in here. If you download it, it's going to be something like this. So you create a new session. You can create a new session, call it, let's say, Tilab app. Okay, that's the session. So on this session now, you put the host name. So in this case, the host name is this. So you can always monitor and load the, so you can have that other guy. The host name is this, and the username. The username is this. The password is this. The port is still 3306, and the database you want to listen to is this. So the database name is this. So once you do that, you can attempt to open it. So it will try and connect to it. So some modifications, changes were changed. Okay, no problem, go ahead. So it's connected to it. So you can see that it's trying to see if there's any table. If you click on it, you can see that it's trying to run some SQL, and nothing is available. So what you want to do is, in this case, I have my database locally that maybe you already have from, say, your PHP admin, or from, yeah. So I have some tables like these tables, things, and probably I have data there. So I'll just simply go to exports. Now when I go to the exports, I may use quick. When I do quick, it's just going to export the SQL like that, with structure of the tables and the data. But if I come to custom, so I can specify which table to export and which one not to export. So if I check all table get exported, and if I don't want the data, just the table, not the data, so all the test data will not go with it. But if I want all the test data to also go with it, so I check that everything goes with it. Then I can configure other options, like how do I want to see it, save output as file name templates, is database, UTF-8, the encoding system, format specific options. You can come here and do the format specific options. The foreign key, relationship, everything, you can put everything there and like that. And if you want to see it as output, or you want to see it generated, you can have that. So the moment you do that configuration, so I'll just go back to quick and export it as SQL. You can specify which format you want to export it as. So you can change this to a JSON documentation file, even change it to a code, like that. So let's say you export it as SQL. So I already have one exported, so I have this text1.sql. So I can head back to my tool, Head back to my tool. This one is empty right now. Don't forget, this is a remote server. This is the application server. So I just say load SQL file. So just go to where this guy is. This is the one I just downloaded now. Open it. It's loaded, so you can see the content of the SQL file, like that. So the next thing I will just do is loaded here. Just click on this play button. Once you click on this play button, it will run the SQL, and then all your tables are live. Alright, so now let's have a look at this thing again. We look at this thing again. Use old thing. It now has tables. You see it's updating. Refresh everything. So you can see now the table, it now has tables, and it has, some of them have record, adverts, notifications, and everything. All right, so congratulations. Now your API works, and there's no database connection problem. Everything connects, and you have all your data loaded. Cheers.